your hand. Don't hesitate at all, and we'll do our best to answer your questions. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you exactly what we are going to be talking about today. Now, let me know if this is hard to hear. I don't think it should be. Can everybody see this so far?
You're looking good.
All right. Thank you, Wayland, because I combed my hair today, so I am looking good, right? I'm good? All right.
Yes.
I did shower before 9 o'clock today. I'm quite proud of that. Hello, and welcome to LearnEast 2020. This presentation will focus on student-created productions. Specifically, I will focus on projects that my grade 5 students created last year. These projects were easily created using green screen software. First, I'll begin by explaining why I want my students to have this innovative digital experience. Next, I will talk about how we connected the projects to the curriculum using science, reading, writing, and storytelling. Following that, I will show a few projects created by my students using green screen software. Afterwards, I'll show you a video prepared by one of my students. In this video, she talks about her experience with these projects. Lastly, Wayland and I will show you some basic functions of the green screen software and how easy it is to learn. Just as a recap, this is what our presentation will look like today. Now, let's get started, and feel free to ask questions along the way. Okay, so I thought maybe the way that I would start is that I would kind of tell you what the background of the project that we did and how it evolved and what it involved exactly and how it began. So in November, I started talking to Jeff about something that I really want to do with students using iPads and technology. I've been looping with these students. I taught them in grade 4, and now I was teaching them in grade 5. I really wanted them to have a different experience with me. And I thought it was time to kind of start using more technology in my classroom. And I had a really good, mature group. I was really fortunate in that sense. They were mature in their ways. They were very creative. They were innovative. So I thought this is a perfect group to start with. So what I did is Jeff and I sat down, and he threw a lot of ideas at me. Then we narrowed it down to one thing. So I picked science because in grade 5, we have to cover weather. That's one of our units that we have to cover. And the curriculum objective that I picked was weather patterns or weather events, which actually we just call natural disasters. That's what we focused on. So what I had thought is basically I said, I'll connect the science curriculum to technology and digital literacy. And how it all began was basically in January, we went back to school. I asked the students, they all had iPads with them. So we're really fortunate. I had 26 students and we had 26 iPads, and they all had their own iPad. And this is in French immersion as well. So we started talking about weather patterns, what exactly natural disasters were. Every student had an iPad. And what I did first, just to make this literacy base, I said, okay, with your iPads in French, I want you to tell me about what the various weather patterns are. What are natural disasters? Where are they? So we started to make kind of a web of all the natural disasters, such as tsunamis, earthquakes. It could have been tornadoes, hurricanes, sandstorms, anything like that. We all did that in French. So every student had a web that we all had to make. So that was the first part of it, and that's how it included literacy. So we did our research. From there, I asked the students, I said, I want you to pick the top 3 natural disasters that you would love to learn about. And I said, you might not get your number 1 pick, but we'll try to make sure that if you don't get your number 1, at least you get your number 2 pick. So the students picked whatever natural disaster they wanted to do. From there, I grouped them according to what their first choice was. And I did have a few students that didn't mind. They got their second choice, but they didn't mind doing that. So I put them into groups of 3. From that point, I gave them a rubric. So once their groups were established and they knew what natural disaster they were covering, I gave them a rubric. And on this rubric, they had to find out a couple of things, and everything was done in French. So first they had to say where this natural disaster happens. So if it's a tsunami, that might be Thailand, that might be India. If it's an earthquake, that could be pretty much anywhere, South America, California. They had to find out first, do research and find out where does it occur. Second thing they had to find out on the rubric was how does it form? How does this occur? The third thing that they had to research was what are the dangers? And the fourth part, this is where we incorporated a lot of art, and we incorporated a lot of technology. They had to build a community in order to protect them against their natural disaster. So if it's an earthquake, their community had to protect them from that earthquake. If there's a tsunami, everything that they built in their community had to protect them against a tsunami. So I gave them their rubric. For about a month, what they did was all the research. They worked together in groups of 3. They also worked together with other groups to say, hey, what website did you find? This was a really good website. I really allowed them to learn from each other. And it really amazed me how engaged they were and how much they were sharing. So we talked about a lot of citizenship with technology. We talked about responsibility, what were good websites, what websites were a bit sketchy, why we should think creatively about the websites that we're using, the information that we're getting. So I also incorporated that into the whole process as well. So the students were really working tightly with their group, but also with other groups, because I was allowing them to share what they found and where they found the information. So for about 3 weeks, I'd say 3 times a week, we worked on a project. And that was all research-based. So that was literacy in terms of science, learning new vocabulary, and reading. Second part involved writing. So they had to make a poster, and they had to do some sort of project. They had to write how, once again, they had to go back to the rubric. They had to write how was there, where did their natural disaster occur? How did it form? Then they had to talk about the dangers, and then they had to put together a community. And they had to write, like, what does my community need? So if it was a tsunami, they said, well, my community will need houses on stilts. They'll need things built on hills. They'll need warning signs, signals, lights to indicate a tsunami is coming. So they wrote all of that. So that was the writing aspect. And that took about a good 2 weeks. They had their own individual posters, but I let students share information. So you still work with your group of 3, but you had your own individual poster. So that was the second part, and that took at least 2 weeks. Then came the last part, which is where we incorporated the art. So they had a choice. So I was trying to give students as many choices as possible. They could build a diorama, or they can use Minecraft, which they love. Most kids pick Minecraft. They could build a community to basically protect them against whatever natural disaster weather pattern they picked. And so they had choices. So that's how I incorporated the art and technology. So now we had 1 extra day that I can use for this project. So by this time, it was probably the beginning of February, maybe the second week of February. So all the research was done, the writing was done. Now we're working on the Minecraft or building the diorama themselves. So far, do I have any questions? Because I'm going to show you some of the projects that my students did so that you kind of have a visual.
The chat's quiet so far. I just like to point out that I really like the way you started with talking about the curriculum first and the research, that it really wasn't about the technology, and that you're bringing that in after. I think that's important. Sometimes we get lost teaching technology first, and then we kind of lose focus or run out of time to actually get into the real content, that the real learning objectives. So you've got that laid out. I'll keep watching the background. You're on.
Thank you, Wayland. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because when Jeff came to me originally and gave me some ideas, I said, Jeff, the ideas that you're giving me, they have to be curriculum based. I didn't want students playing games. What I wanted something to connect to literacy, basically. That was my goal. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you a few projects, but I'm not going to show you the entire project. So once the students built their community, they went to video editing, and that's where the art part came. They started to make a video, and I'll show you so that you have an idea how it worked. And we use a green screen to do this as well, but I'll get into more of that later. and Wayland will tell you more about the green screen as well. So I'm going to show you a few projects, but once again, they're just a section of their projects. I'm not going to show all projects, and I'm not going to show the whole entire their whole entire presentation. No. Okay. So this project here was really interesting. And once again, this is in French immersion. So even if you don't understand it, you get the gist. Now, can everybody hear me and see this? Wayland,
good.
okay. So I have a student here, and what they did is they built a wall here using Minecraft. And what they did is they built a wall to protect themselves against a tsunami. And here she says we have a school, and we have roads, and we have other safety features. But what's really interesting about this is what they built. They built this using Minecraft during art class. We, using a green screen, put this girl, the student, here. So it looks like, and you'll hear her speaking, and her other partners will come on as well. You'll hear them speaking. So it looks like they're actually in their Minecraft game. So I'm just going to play it, and let me know, Wayland, if you can't hear it. I'm just going to keep it this size.
Derrière moi est l'école, les maisons et notre grand mur. Le mur est ici pour nous protéger contre les tsunamis. Il y a les éponges pour observer l'eau. Ici est l'école, alors tu peux savoir où tu es et si un tsunami peut t'affecter. Les maisons sont ici, alors tu peux dormir et être prêt pour courir s'il y a un tsunami.
If I go back to this girl right here, the student here, she's talking about how they built a farm to make sure that they have food during a tsunami or following a tsunami, because that was one of the dangers, is that they don't have food. So it's really interesting how she built this through Minecraft, and it was all connected. They connected their three, what they built, and they video edited everything, and this is what she built. Now the next boy, he talks about basically having a hospital, having police officers, and having just a safety area.
Pompiers, policiers et hôpital, tout dans ici. En fait, un policier parce qu'il y a les criminels dans beaucoup de villes, presque tout. En fait, un pompier parce que les tsunamis peuvent causer les feux avec les électroniques. Et en fait, un hôpital parce que les tsunamis peuvent laisser des personnes, mais il y a une chance qu'ils peuvent survivre. Ici, on fait un bunker pour protéger les personnes. Parce que si on n'a pas de quelque chose comme ceci, les personnes vont mourir dans le tsunami. Dans le bunker, il y a un livre ici et un que tu ne peux pas voir parce que c'est derrière de moi. Aussi, on a des places pour mettre des choses là.
So if everyone could turn off their microphone, that'd be great, because we're hearing other people's noises from other people's homes. But here, this boy, what he's doing is he's saying they have a bunker. So he created this using Minecraft, but when he was filming, he was behind a green screen, and I'll show you more of that later. So he was moving his hands, and we put him in this background. So basically, when he was taped in front of a green screen, not in front of this at all. This was a background that was added to what he was saying. So far, do I have any questions?
So far, so good.
Okay, I'm going to show you something I thought was really cool. This one here. So it was a sandstorm for them, and you're talking about how in the Middle East, you know, this is a common occurrence, and their idea was to build a pool so that if you see a windstorm coming or a sandstorm coming, you would hop into that pool to protect yourself. And I kind of like what they did. So these three individuals were in front of a green screen, and this was their background. And what they did is, as they were taping, they talked about it. They talked about what you need to do, how do you need to jump into the pool. But what was really cool, it's all done in front of a green screen. And then we put the image in after, and it kind of corresponds very well in this situation. I'll just go back. So you see how they all jumped in. So they did that in front of the green screen, but they really did their presentation, organized it really well so that those words and those actions went with that background. They took a picture first of that background. And I like this one here because this girl here talks about clothing that you should have to protect yourself during a sandstorm.
Si tu as dehors, tu peux porter des vêtements spéciaux.
So she says, so what they did is they put themselves up here, and this was their background, and these are the clothes that they recommend that you wear during a sandstorm. I'm also going to show you one that was really different. So that was done with Minecraft. We also had two groups that decided they would rather build a diorama because they wanted to do something more hands-on rather than use in Minecraft. So they built a community themselves using cardboards, and that was quite interesting and actually quite easy to do. So they preferred to do that one there. And I'm just going to give you an idea of what these students did. And I like this because they actually put in slides, and their video editing was really well done. They spent a lot of time providing information as they were presenting.
Nous voulions faire une tempête de verglas pour notre projet de science parce que nous pensons que c'est intéressant.
So see here how they added this. So they went with the rubric and they said what countries are affected by like Val d'Ascent, which is what is it in English now? It's basically freezing rain. And so I like how they threw the slides in. They did a little bit of video, and they provided that information.
Les pays qui sont affectés par la pluie verglaçante et les États-Unis et le Canada. Pour la tempête de verglas. Premièrement, ça commence à faire la pluie. Ensuite, ça commence à faire la neige et le vent. À la fin, il y a le vent, la pluie.
I think you kind of get the idea. There's a lot of different things that you can do using a green screen, and there's a lot of different ways that you can present your video. What I appreciate about what these girls did is they built this here, so that was their background. And they have various backgrounds. This isn't the only one. So they took the picture of their background, and then we did this. It went in front of a green screen, and then we added them to this background through video editing. I'm just going to play one video here. And what I thought I would do is kind of show you, it's kind of a testimonial. The student really, really enjoyed this project. And it was really interesting to watch her blossom because at first she was a bit hesitant and she wasn't sure, but she was extremely engaged, learning things, teaching other students. And what really impressed me about this whole entire project was the way that students learn from each other. I really took I really backed off a bit, and it was hard for me to do at first because I really wanted to be the person in control, but I realized that wasn't happening. The students were really great at learning quite fast, teaching each other, and I was really impressed with how serious they took it. You can do this with any age group. You just have to be creative and find a section of the curriculum that it works with. But I'm going to get you to listen to her story and what her experience was like using the green screen.
Hi, my name is Caitlin Triffs. I was in Madame Thibodeau's grade 5 French immersion class last year, and I'm here to discuss my group project, which was about the tsunami.
And why did you enjoy completing this particular project, Caitlin?
I particularly enjoyed completing this project because of the form we did it in. We got to use the iPads for it, which means we got to do the research on the iPads.
And how did you and your group do your research?
We went into Safari and we used many different sites, one of them being National Geographic. We searched up topics like where do tsunamis form? How do they form? What's the best way to help protect yourself against tsunamis? And other things like that.
And what writing was involved, and how did you write your script for the video that you presented?
The writing involved included taking notes as we were gathering information from the website. We wrote our script out just so it would be a basic guideline for what we were going to say as we presented it.
And what technical skills did you learn?
Some of the many technical skills we learned is video editing, Minecraft education, and the best ways to research.
And did you have a particular favorite out of those?
It's hard to pin where out of those three would be my absolute favorite. I love researching, but I also found it really fun to do the Minecraft education and the video editing.
And did you like the green screen when you were recording your project?
Yes, I thoroughly enjoyed using the green screen because it makes you feel like you're in a different world even though you're not.
And how does the green screen work? Like when you were doing your video?
You take pictures of what you want to place yourself in, and you set it up on the iPad and you project it onto a green screen, and then it changes the colors and it places you in.
And if you were given the opportunity, would you like to do another project like this one in the future?
I absolutely would do another project like this. It was thoroughly enjoyable getting to use the iPads and presenting in a different format.
And was there anything else that you learned that you wanted to share today?
I wanted to share that when you're Googling and using Safari, you can get repeat information and new stuff, so just make sure that you know what you've already seen, what you haven't, and see if when things conflict, which makes the most sense.
That's great, Caitlin. Thanks so much. You have a good rest of your summer.
I will. Stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Hi, Nancy.
I really thoroughly enjoyed this video, especially at the end, how she says, stay safe, everyone, just reminding us to stay safe while we're at school. But so far, do you have any questions about the projects? Because we're going to move kind of more into the technical part, but I'm going to start with some things and I'm going to hand it over to Wayland. Are there any questions so far about the projects?
The chat's pretty quiet right now.
Okay. Just so that you know, the project started, and this is from the initial phase. It started in January. I spent about 200 minutes per week on the project, but that includes literacy, writing as well, science, and art. But I did increase it in February because that's when we started the video editing. So I increased it to about another, I think it was about 250 minutes a week, because that's when I added more artwork. So in February, that's when we started. I think it was about the second week of February. That's when we started with building the community. So that's when we started with Minecraft or the dioramas. And that's when they started to put it into a video and start video editing. And that there probably took a good 2 weeks. So the good part is before March break, students pretty much finished their projects. The only part that was hard was we never had the chance to truly finish just because of COVID. We were finishing, we were in our last stages of editing, and students didn't have, not all students didn't have the chance to actually publish their videos, which made it quite difficult. So if you're looking at a project like this, you can expect to probably spend a good 2 months on it, but that's not all day long. I was doing that between, like I said, all depended on a week, between 200 to 250 minutes a week, and that included literacy and everything. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation with you. And this is where we're going to kind of move into the technical aspect of things. And it's very basic. We're not going to go into detail just because what I've learned basically is this is something you have to play with. That's how I've learned. I've learned from students, but I also learned from coming home at night and just playing with the application. And it's very user friendly. It didn't take me long at all to learn. So if you were to work with the green screen, there's a couple of things that you need. Just 1 sec, sorry. All right, can you still see my screen? Not now. Let's go back there. So there's a couple of things that you do need. One is you need an iPad with 2 applications. So you need an iPad with a camera, and you need an iPad that has the doing program. We were really fortunate, which is a green screen program. We were really fortunate at school because our principal at the time had put this program, the doing program, on 20 computers. So we were able to use them. They're very cheap. You can get them for $4.99 the program, or $6.99. I think I paid $6.99 for mine. And once you have it, that's it, you have it. You don't have to pay for a membership or anything like that. So the first 2 things that you need, if you want to do a project like this, are iPads, and you need to go into the camera, and you need this here program, the doing program. Wayland, is there anything else that you wanted to add to that before I move on?
I might, yeah, sure. I would just add that not every iPad needs to have the Doink software or the Doink app. That's kind of like your final production piece, that you could actually use any iPads, or even students with phones could capture images or video with their phones using the camera, and then share it to the iPad with Doink for the production piece. So you could actually have multiple kind of cameras working, collecting the footage, and then airdrop it to the one iPad with Doink, where your final kind of putting together of the project is. That's the only thing I would add right there. But that's yeah, I think, yeah, keep going. Great.
Okay, thank you. And actually, that's a good point, because my students were airdropping their projects to their partners so that they could continue. It's kind of like they were working collaboratively. And so they would airdrop what they did to the partner, and the partner would continue. So we had 3 students on 1 iPad sometimes. So yeah, so I guess you don't need the doing program, but we had one on every iPad, so we were quite fortunate. If you want to buy the doing program, you just simply go into search, and then I just typed in green screen doing, and this is what comes up. And like I said, most times it's $5.99, $6.99. So that's what you do a search for. And I just went into my Apple store. Now you're going to need a green screen, and I have one at home, and I simply just went to the dollar store, got one of those tablecloths, those bright green ones that kind of looks like this color right here, and that's what I set up. I set it up on my garage. It was pretty light, so I had to put a blanket behind it to just give it some darkness. And that's my green screen looks a lot like this at home. At school, our administration bought a really, really good one. I can't remember how much it costs, but we have one at school, one huge one basically, and it's more cloth. You can also do this, and this is a project that I'm possibly looking at for next year, where you have a background, a green background, and what they're doing is they're telling a story here. So they've created a story, they've created their characters, and what they're doing is they're filming their characters. They already have their background, and they're in the process right now of filming the voice basically, and what their characters are saying for their story. Another thing I should mention is that your background, you can get pictures off the internet. Like I went to Bhutan, and my husband and I, what we did is we practiced, and I put them in Bhutan basically, and I just took my pictures from the past and put them on the green screen application. And we had him talking where he was doing a tour of Bhutan. So these are different things that you can do. This one is a really good one as well. So once again, this person has her characters for a story, and she's in the process of telling the story using her characters. What she's going to do, her character is in front of a green screen. Later on, she's going to add maybe her artwork or some sort of background to go along with the story. Now you notice this, the straw has to be in green. because if it's not, then that will come up. We won't be able to fade that out. Well, you probably would use a wand. Would you, Wayland? If that wasn't green, if it was black, could you use a wand and scratch that out?
I think so. It might become a little trickier where it's a moving object.
Right. Okay. But at least you try and use something green. But a few things I learned along the way is stretch out your green screen. You want no wrinkles because that shows up. So this here, you may want that stretch out a little bit better, because if you have wrinkles, you get shadows. You want to watch the amount of light, just because you get a lot of shadows. So I put mine by a window, and that sort of helped because I was getting natural light. You need to have a distance between the object or the person, the actor, and a green screen. You don't want them too close and you don't want them too far away. And don't wear green because you'll blend in and all you see is a bobbing head, which would be kind of creepy. So make sure that the person is not wearing green. Are there any questions up to this point?
Everyone just seems to be soaking it in. I'm sure
Awesome.
they're saving them all for the end.
That's good. That's perfect as well.
I was just going to say that you mentioned Google searching for photos for them to use, and that could be incorporated into a digital citizenship lesson where you have to give credit searching for open source or Creative Commons images that are free to use, as opposed to just taking pictures off the internet, right? And that becomes kind of a discussion about sharing and giving attribution to resources that you get. So just another element to add to your lesson that isn't really about technology, but really about how being a citizen.
Thank you. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up, Wayland, because we also talked about plagiarism and what it meant. And that was an interesting topic because a lot of my students hadn't really heard of plagiarism, or if they heard of it, they didn't really know what it meant. So for the writing part, we talked about making sure that you source the websites and making sure that you're not copying word for word, verbatim, what's being written on the internet. We also talked about questioning what you're reading as well. So that was a really good opportunity to talk about the safety, and not only just safety, but how accurate the information is. So if you were going to take on a project like this, the first thing you want to do is you want to take pictures of your background or download pictures from the internet. So you go to your camera, and that's when you take pictures. So I'll give you an example of the videos of the 3 students jumping in a pool. They built that community. They built that pool using Minecraft. What they did after is they took a picture of what they built, and they said, we want this as our background, our picture, for when we're explaining that you need to jump into a pool to protect yourself against a sandstorm. So first, they took that picture. That's what they did. So here's a picture that one of my students took. It was 2 of my students. They built a community to protect themselves against, I believe, I can't remember, I think it might have been an earthquake, if I'm not mistaken. So they built this community first, and he took this picture. So that was his background image. Now, you find him standing in the middle at some point, not right now, and he's talking about his whole setup here and why he set it up the way that he did. So later, we took this picture, put my student in front of the green screen. He did the speaking that went along. So he kind of prepared the dialogue that went along with this picture. And later on, we added him to that background. And we're going to get into a little bit more detail with that afterwards. So this is kind of what you want to do first. First, you take a background picture. That's what my student did. Then we recorded my student in front of the green screen. He was talking about this community, why he built it, and how every aspect was important for protection. And the last one, after we recorded this, my student, we took him, here he is right here, and he's speaking about exactly what the importance of this community is and how it protects itself against an earthquake. So first, he started with this, just took the background picture. Then he went from the green screen. And when we use the software, the doing software, we placed him in front of this as he spoke. So just to kind of reiterate here, so we wanted to record him. When we recorded my student, he was in front of the green screen. Now, he wasn't doing this. This is just an example, basically, of stuff I found on the internet. My student was in front of that green screen, kind of like these characters are in front of the green screen here. So what we did is we recorded him. Just gonna go back. We recorded our student right here, and that's how he appeared here. So this is kind of what my student that's wearing blue looked like as he was speaking, as we were recording. From there, we opened a green screen. And that's when we put the voice and did all the video editing. So we opened this up, put the pictures, we put the background, we put the actor, and then we put the voice as well. Now, Wayland's going to kind of take over from here. And Wayland, at this point, I think you're going to talk more about the technical skills, the program itself, and show some other examples of the stuff that was done using the green screen. Is that right?
Sure, I can do that.
Okay.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the app. Okay, so let me share my screen here. Let me do this, share my screen, and I'm going to bring up, let's see if this works. Can you see my green screen app?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so the way the app works is that you'll see down at the bottom, I have layers, and imagine that you're stacking sheets of transparency film on top of each other, and the bottom layer here is your background, and then as you move up through the layers, you're stacking things closer to you. So what I've done here is, let's just see here. I'm going to go back here. When you open it up, you can start projects right up here by clicking on this. But I just started a blank project, so I'm just going to open up this first one. And down in the bottom, I just click on the little plus button. So this is my background. So where I click, and then I can choose between, videos or photos that I have. And then that will go into the app. And then I just keep adding elements as I move forward. Now you'll see I've added a couple of pictures. So I've added myself in the middle there. And then I took another picture of a student and I just kind of shrunk him and put him on my hand, right? So if I click on that, and I will show you, I'll click on this little button. So I've kind of cropped out his image. So there he is in front of that screen. You can see this around him. And then I've kind of just cropped out a little bit just to get rid of the floor and the sides. And then what I do is I actually can't see this, but I put my fingers right on the screen right here, my two fingers, and I will pinch and zoom, and I can move him around and place him where I want. You can do this with all sorts of different things. And that's kind of the basics of it. You'll see if I was doing a video, I can just drag this screen, and that red bar is kind of my timeline of where I'm going to insert things. So I could actually stretch out my background to be a little bit longer. And then maybe I'll just have, by clicking on these little handles right here, I can kind of shrink this so that he's actually going to appear. So if I hit the play button, what you would actually see, if that's going to work, is that I would be here, and then as it scrolls through, he pops on my hand, then he goes away, and then I go away. So there's little things like that. But it's pretty easy, as I say. It's just working with layers and with these little plus buttons, adding elements, and students pick up on this pretty quickly. Even and very young, as Tracy mentioned. Maybe I'll just see if I can share a picture of what she's doing here. Let's see if I have some images. I did. I was going to show the screen. Oops. I'm trying to bring that screen over. Tracy, was there anything else about the program you think people should know? Or was that kind of the basics of it?
That's kind of the basics of it. You know, there is a lot, as Wayland was saying, you just have to play with it. There is a lot with the editing that you can do. And the nice thing is that my students, as they were learning, were sharing with each other, and they were actually showing me some things as well. So there's a lot of really cool things you'll learn along the way, but it really is very easy to use. I was impressed. If you use iMovie, well, I'm not sure, do you find this any easier than iMovie? I know I do.
To be honest, I do smaller bits in the green screen app, and then sometimes I'll just move that over to iMovie afterwards. If I'm doing a larger piece, you know, I don't like to do big long clips. You know, I would say anything after 5 minutes, I would do mostly in iMovie, but maybe do my small green screen production pieces in the app and then move it over.
Okay, so what you're saying basically is that you first do it in green screen and then you publish it over to iMovie, or you just export it?
No, I would publish it, or I would turn it into an actual video clip, and then probably airdrop it over to my iMovie.
Okay. Now,
But that's if it's a longer thing. Most student projects are pretty short.
Right.
So it's pretty good inside the app.
Right, because a lot of my students use they use a green screen, and what they did is that's exactly what they did. They exported everything over to iMovie and continued, and that's how they made the slides and everything like that. So they took the clips and they exported it to iMovie. And every iPad should have iMovie on it, right, Wayland?
Yes, I think it's a default program.
Right. So, and that's what my students did for the editing part. So when they added slides, if they want to add music, any extras, they went through iMovie at the end, and they published it. And some students had YouTube accounts, so they published it to YouTube. Some students just published them and kept them on their iPad. Some students trying to email it to themselves. So they did a variety of things. But I think what's important here to remember is that you can do this at pretty much all age groups. If you're starting young, just start with a really small project, just a little story, have them create their characters, put a box in the background, just go according to their grade level. But at first I was really hesitant. I wasn't sure how quickly they were going to learn. And I was really pleasantly surprised with how engaged they were, with how much they love learning, and with how much they love sharing. So I really recommend going forward with it. And if you're interested, of course, and I know this is going to be a unique year, it's going to be a different year, but at the same time, this may be the year to teach technology, because we are going down that road with virtual classrooms, and this is the year to do this and to explore. And one thing I had to do is be patient, because sometimes I felt we weren't learning as fast as I wanted them to learn, but that was my own issue. They were learning really fast. And they were, sometimes I was wondering, are they fooling around? Are they playing around? But I walked around a lot just to make sure. And sometimes they did get excited, but mostly the novelty wore off after a while. They really did take it seriously. The excitement was about learning something new.
Yeah, and the creativity, right? You can't really judge the pace of creativity when they're working in those environments. That's great stuff. I think, are we getting close to our time, Tracy?
It's 10:30.
What time is 45 minutes, right? So are we there?
We are pretty much there, yes.
Wow, that's great timing. Just so I don't forget, I'm going to post the link to the survey in the chat now, because I will forget. if I don't do that. So if people want to fill that out, and again, that's about the about LearnEast, your experience with LearnEast, and put your name into the prize draw. So maybe we'll invite some questions now. Does that sound okay, Tracy? Are we at that point?
That sounds perfect.
All right. So if you have a question, you want to put it in the chat, or if you feel comfortable opening up your mic and asking directly, go ahead and pick Tracy's brain.
Remember, it's only Monday, so go easy on the question.
Yeah, that's right. So in the chat, Tracy, I see a question that says, very interesting. I'll use this in class. Thanks so much. How did you purchase the program? How do you get what's your process for buying apps at your school?
We were really lucky. Our principal at the time, Mr. Yachek, just purchased them for us. But the deal was that as long as we were going to be using it, and it was curriculum based, and that was really easy to do. The nice thing is these iPads are available to all classes, all students, and every iPad that we have, the 21 new ones that he purchased, he put them on. So I went to administration and asked.
Through the admin. It's probably different at different schools. Maybe you have to make individual requests, or but you ensured that you had a plan that discussed curriculum first. It wasn't just gee, these would be fun.
Exactly. And one thing that the administration liked was that my students were in grade 5, and we went down to some grades in grade 2, in grade 3, and grade 4 actually, and we worked with them on some of the programs as well. So we taught them iMovie. Now we didn't have a chance to teach them the green screen app because we were in a process of learning it ourselves, and schools were canceled. So, but yeah, so one thing that they really enjoyed was the fact that my students went down to a grade 2 class, they went down to a grade 1 class and a grade 4 class to show them features as well.
Okay. Just to follow up to that question is, did you create an iTunes account to download this, or in purchase with the school credit card? And that was really, I think you said that was more at the administration level.
That's right. That was a school credit card. And
they work with, they put a request in with IT?
That's a great question. I don't know. I'm assuming, nope, they didn't. We just purchased them. No, just from the Apple store. And they just showed up. Magic. I love it. But you know what, Wayland? I'm not 100% sure on that. So that's a good question, because the administration took care of that. So there may have been a request. So that one, there must be a help desk request or something that goes through IT, because I don't think, I know at some of the schools I'm at, they don't have personal accounts on the iPad. So it gets pushed down, I believe, to the iPads. Right. But something to look in. It probably is the same at different schools, but I'm not real sure about that. Right. Yeah, I'm not sure how it was done, but administration took care of it. And I do know that we had the programs within a few days, not even a few days. So that's why I'm not sure if a help desk was put in, because we had the program within a couple of days. Nice. That's great. I'm not sure. Okay. If there's any other questions out there, please feel free to put them in the chat. I want to take this time, or if you want to open your microphone and ask, please feel free. This is the time. And in the meantime, while I'm just watching the chat, I'd like to thank Tracy for donating her time and her knowledge, and sharing with us her students' work. It's amazing. I love the camera angles too. The top down, it really worked with the perspective of the screenshots, right? It's really neat stuff there. And I loved your interview with that young lady. I thought she was a teacher after I listened to her talk for a little bit. Her background, yeah. Her maturity level. But I wanted to say that she was invited to this, but she's at a training right now for Theatre New Brunswick, so she couldn't come, but she was actually invited today to present. So she decided to go with a video instead, which I thought was a really good idea. Nice. I thought that was sweet. Yeah. But I do have a question. Does anyone have ideas that they can share? How could you use this in your classroom? I know some of you have said teachers that I see that are here. Is there any way that you could use this in your classroom, or were there any ideas that popped up as Wayland and I were speaking? Great question. is there anywhere in the curriculum, social studies, where you see this fitting, health, anything at all, where things came up, says, you know what, I could really do this for this subject matter?
I see someone adding to the, it's Sherry is adding to our chat right now. I'm just anticipating. Oh, okay. Sherry says, I'm hoping to use it in Journalism 12.0 for news reports. That's a great app. We actually had students using it in some of the elementary schools for their video announcements. So very similar to that idea. But yeah, being able to put yourself in the environment that you're reporting about, or using it even to create those little windows, you know, in the news reports, and the little windows that pop up beside the announcer that give you this image related to whatever they're speaking about. Yeah, I bet journalism would be a great use of that.
And
we got Leah. I would love to do the systems of the body for health and PE. Oh, and she doesn't want to use her mic. She's shy. That's all right. Yeah. What's do you remember there used to be a show when I was a kid, Good Body, some guy Good Body or something like that? Or can you imagine maybe a picture of the skeletal system and someone green screening themselves in, pointing to the different bones and talking about them, or the flow of food through the digestive system? That's just stuff popping into my head. I love this. This is great. Magic School Bus. Yes, Magic School Bus.
I think that would be a great way to make it very visual for students. For you're talking about phys ed and the digestive system and health, I think that would be an excellent way to make it. And it would be kind of funny too if you had a student's head there, your own student's head. I would make it more entertaining for them as you're presenting, but also for journalism to go back. I think it was Sherry. Was that her name?
Yes.
Sherry, that age group is perfect because they're ready at that point. They're creative, and we have an election coming up. So I mean, those are things that may engage them even more because it's relevant, it's authentic. But those grade 12 students can be very creative, and what they know already would amaze you. So I think that'd be a great way to start.
Yes, yeah. I see Peter's added here. Could use for a walkthrough in housing and design. Walkthroughs are a great idea.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they design something and then take you through it with their own voice.
That would be an excellent idea for sure. And it's kind of what my students did with their communities that they built, very similar.